Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to gather a cadre of writers, thinkers, and teachers who are transforming the world one character at a time. And it all starts with one thing, a deep understanding of human motivation, why people do what they do, and the forces that drive them. To gain that understanding, I am mining the intersection of psychology, theology, and philosophy to make you a better writer. This is episode 91, How to Zettelkasten a Book, Bib Cards, the backside. I've been on a diversion lately to talk a little bit about a Zettelkasten and how you create cards in a Zettelkasten. I began with a desire to talk about how we come about creating a moment of understanding, and wanted to use the Zettelkasten as an example because it's a marvelous mechanism by which you can take concepts and ideas and hold two related but different concepts in your mind at the same time. And it can be a very powerful experience and a very insightful experience. And so I wanted to make sure that we're kind of all on the same level with, what is a Zettelkasten and how do you create cards in a Zettelkasten? And then I got so much positive feedback from comments that it occurred to me that this is something that people really want to know. So I'm going to take the time that it takes to go through an example from where you begin with taking the notes to all the way to where you make a main card, then where another book comes in, and how the two are going to interact. So this will probably take several days to go through, and we've been talking about the bibliography cards that are known as bib cards, and I gave you some examples. These are the real ones, and I've got some of them reproduced in digital form so that I can share them with you. So we started with the first card where we gave the bibliography information, and then the second card we started to do Mortimer Adler's process of being a demanding reader, where you're going to ask 4 questions. And we launched into the first question, which is, what is the book about as a whole? And Adler says that the way that you want to begin to answer that question is through a process of doing an inspectional reading. So we set ourselves up for that, and here we are. Last time I gave you a blank bib card, but I showed you where we got this. This is your first bib card, and when you wrote on the line sides, you had it in landscape, and then simply turn it over into the portrait side, and that's where you're going to make your bib notes that you're going to make from the book. So we're talking here about inspectional reading. Inspectional reading is a very, very interesting type of reading where you basically it's a little more involved than skimming the book. You're reading, but you're just reading right straight through as though you were reading a light-hearted novel. And you might be reading an extremely complex book, a book even that's over your head, or a book that's at your, you just have to be at your highest level to be able to read it. But you read it as though it was nothing to you. You just read and read and read and read and read. And Adler stresses how important it is not to stop and look up words. Just read right past anything that you don't understand, and just that reading right through from the start to the finish, or I would suggest maybe a chapter from the start to the finish, is going to give you a wonderful basis for coming back around to the book and diving in more deeply where you need to do that. Well, this style of reading also turns out to be enormously valuable for both kinds of reading. Reading for information and reading for formation. Reading for information is where you've picked up a certain book and you've got an area of knowledge that you're studying, and that book has something to do with that area of knowledge, or you're trying to fill in a gap, and you're looking for material that relates to some specific thing. You're not necessarily going to be reading the whole book. That's reading for information. And the other type of reading where it's a very renowned book, you know it's worth your while, and you want that book to help shape you, then you're going to read the whole book and really take it in. But so it's Mortimer Adler's How to Read a Book can actually be used quite profitably for both. And for both, you're going to begin with inspectional reading. So this turns out to be an enormously valuable bib card. It's the bib card that you take when you're doing inspectional reading. Now this is an example drawn from chapter 5 of How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler and Charles Van Doren. Whoops, get it in there. And I'm just using chapter 5 so that we can go through and be done. So in the inspectional reading, the main questions that you're trying to ask is what kind of a book is it, what is it about as a whole, and what is its structure. And so therefore, that's how we're going to approach the reading of chapter 5. Now these are the notes that I took. Your notes might be different. And I like to use different colors of pen, and I actually do put the page number of the book in red pen. This lets me isolate it very quickly from the rest of the note. I use a whole color combination, usually not so much in inspectional reading. Inspectional reading is probably just going to be red and black. Black I use when I'm trying to put something in my own words that I've just read. If it's a quote, I write it in blue. And if it's a thought that occurs to me while I'm reading this book, and wow, what a neat idea, and I don't want to lose it, I write it in purple. So that's just my habits. So what we're trying to do with inspectional reading is we're basically saying we're reading, but we're reading quickly, and we're leaving behind in our notes kind of an outline of the book. Well, Adler makes this very easy for us because he uses block headings, so we can very quickly find how he has structured his book. And those block headings turn out to be great markers. Those markers turn out to also be very, very valuable if you have read a book very deeply and have gone on to do a very deep reading and you've got a stack of bib cards for that book. Your inspectional reading gives you something to go back to very quickly to help you get back into exactly where you want to go in your deep reading notes. So this almost forms a table of contents for you. And if you're doing the type of reading where you're reading for information, you can figure out very quickly what section, what area of the book you want to give a deep reading to. So this is what the backside of a bib card looks like. So where we're going to take this tomorrow is we're going to start going from a bib card into note cards for main notes to go into your Zettelkasten. Your bib cards will all go into your bib box. We're going to be making some note cards for the main box. And I should say right to begin with, I would not normally make main cards from an inspectional reading. I would normally make main cards from the deep reading, but I'm going to make them from the inspectional reading just so that we don't have to say, okay, we're going to spend the next 4 days making more and more and more bib cards. This is what a bib card looks like. And if you're doing a deeper note, then you would have more information in these notes, and you might have, this chapter 5 might take 3 bib cards. It's up to you how many notes you want to make. I have a lovely formula that was shared with me by Nicholas Gatien, and he calls it the irresistible idea. And it's this interesting little chart. Let's see if I can get it in. And the basis of this chart is when do you want to make a note for your main card? And the answer is if it's applicable to what you're doing and it's new, a new piece of information, then yes, you want to make a main card. And he's got 3 other rules. That's just an introduction. We'll be seeing more of this tomorrow. So stay with me, and tomorrow we will begin the process of taking main notes off of the bib notes. See you then. Bye-bye.